Hey everyone, I'm Jen, and today I'm live with the lovely Melanie Fisher.
Hey guys.
Thank you so much for joining me and doing this.
Thanks for having
me.
It's fun to be here.
I have been following Melanie for a couple years now, and I have to say I'm pretty pumped about doing this collaboration with her.
Oh,
so
thanks.
She's a wife and a mother to an adorable little guy named Arlo. How old is he? Is he 2?
Arlo is 2. He and Zuri are really close at age, I think.
Are they?
Yeah.
July.
Okay,
cool. And I absolutely love following her on Instagram and seeing all of her stories. And I think one of the most inspiring ones to me are her stories on minimalism. But she also has this vision and a passion to see people get back to reading books. So that is why we're here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of that. But before we fully get started, I just want to say that at the very end of this video, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to win a book. Actually, I forgot to have that here with me. Where is it? Hold on 1 second.
Don't have it behind us so I can just grab.
Right I'm going to give you an opportunity to win this book. It's illustrated stories from Aesop. I purchased this book a while back, and it's full of really amazing stories, short little stories. They're not super long, and my kids love them. So there's probably, I don't know how 30 stories or something like that in there. So at the very end, I'll show you how you can enter to win the book. All right, so sorry.
You're fine.
If you guys follow me at all, or if you watch any of my videos, you know that I'm very passionate about helping women live a very intentional life. Just doing things in a very mindful way, being very careful about the choices that we make, and a huge part about living intentionally is to never stop learning. I truly believe that. You have to constantly be learning. And one of the biggest ways to never stop learning is to never stop reading. So Melanie and I were both moms. She has a 2-year-old, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And as mothers, her and I and all of you moms out there watching us today, we have this incredible opportunity to not only live intentionally ourselves, but also to equip our kids to do that. And if we want our kids to be lifelong learners, then we need to teach them from little on up to love to read. So I feel like my kids love to read, but not as much as Arlo does. I mean, I see them on your stories. So Melanie, she knows what she's talking about. She's very educated on this topic, and when I hear her speak, I can feel it coming from her soul. Like, this is something she's very passionate about. So I have 2 main questions that I'll ask you that I'll let you answer live for everybody.
Perfect.
And all right, so number 1 is, what is so important about reading, and what do parents need to know about the what's the urgency of why we need to get our kids' faces in books?
So maybe just for a minute here, I'll give you a little bit of background. I was raised by 2 school teachers. Both my parents have their degrees in education. My mom taught elementary school for a number of years in between college and starting to raise her own family. And then somewhere along the line, once most of us were in school, started actually working as a librarian in the Lancaster County Public Library System, and has done that for probably close to 2 decades now. And my dad has been a Christian school administrator almost all of his life, and also an elementary school music teacher. Both of them had an inbred love of books themselves, and of course that trickled down to all of their 5 children. My 4 siblings and I all love to read and really value books, and we'll spend an evening together recounting memories of stories that our parents read and that we shared as children. So it's really established family culture for me with my siblings, and that's definitely something I want to pass on to my own children as well. So I didn't realize, I guess, until I really became an adult and a parent myself, that that's not like the norm. You know how it is, like you grow up as a kid and it takes a while to realize that, like, other families do things differently,
Mm-hmm.
and things that are very normal and commonplace in our home is not necessarily the case for everyone. Yeah. And I realized, especially when I became a mom, and actually when I became an Usborne Books and More consultant, which those two things happened very close to the same time, within a few weeks of each other. Okay. So then I started marketing children's books, as well as, you know, really finally reading to my own little baby, that it's not necessarily something that's happening in every home. And so then I feel like that kind of uncovered for me this passion of wanting to share with other moms how important it is. So one of the, like, basic foundational things that I'm not going to talk a lot about, because so many experts have talked about this, and you can just Google why reading is important for kids, is for things like brain development. And just a few statistics that I'll share, because they were surprising to me, not things that you necessarily read about every day, is that vocabulary is, like, the prime indicator. Like, a child's vocabulary, so the amount of words that a child knows and uses, like, says on a regular basis, at age 5, when they enter kindergarten, is, like, the prime indicator of how they're going to do in school. Oh, wow. Like, more than anything else. Obviously, there's other factors as well, but that is, like, the main thing that they'll look at. And the main thing we can do to build our child's vocabulary is to read to them. Of course, there's other factors involved there, too. They hear us talk. They hear others talk. They may listen, like when you have the TV on, you know, other, like, media things playing, and just hearing other people talk, other adults, other children, all of those things are contributing as well. But reading to your child is the main way you can help build their vocabulary. Okay. And talk to any kindergarten, first grade teacher, like, they will tell you that they can tell which kids in their classroom are read to on a daily basis, regular basis, and which ones aren't. Wow. Like, it is so obvious when your kid enters school. And because of that, because it is such an integral part in building your child's vocabulary. And then there's things associated with brain development from, like, I mean, there's starting to be studies showing that reading to your child while they are still in the womb is having an effect on their cognitive development and things like that. So if you read books like What to Expect While You're Expecting, and, like, Your Child's First Year, and some of those real mainstream, like, parenting books, like, they're good. They're talking about these things. They're fairly commonly known. But then another statistic that was surprising to me was that one of the most indicative factors that predicts whether your child will pursue and complete higher education is the number of books in their home. That plays more of a role than like any environmental circumstantial factors, or the parents' level of education completed. So we're in Lancaster County, right? I have lots of friends with like plain Amish and Mennonite background who have an 8th grade education themselves. But that means, like, that plays less of a influence on, like, whether those children will go on to complete higher education. Like, they can make up for that that almost sounds bad, but by having books in the home, like the number of books that you own. So Jenny said at the beginning, I am a big proponent for minimalism. I'm all about, like, not owning as much stuff. We don't need as much stuff as we think we do. But then you see behind us here this huge floor-to-ceiling bookcase containing lots and lots of children's
Pretty
books.
is her collection. So gorgeous.
And we have a lot of fun with it.
The book I'm giving away to you guys is from her collection, by the way. It's one of the Usborne books.
Yes. Yeah. So that's one of the books that I sell. So I started the book selling endeavor kind of in an effort to, well, really because the idea of being able to earn some of these books for free and share them with my friends appealed to me. And I figured I'd do it for a few months and then be done. And we'd have some good books to show for it. And that was really kind of my vision going into my journey as an Usborne Books and More consultant. I really didn't expect it to last more than a few months. I ended up having a lot of fun with it. And I think really what keeps me going to this day is that I realize there's such a need to educate other moms on, like, why books are important, why this is worth spending your money on. Yeah. So that's why I'm still here. Anyway, that's kind of a little aside. So yeah, those are a couple of the things, like brain development. And I can't, in a few minutes, hardly begin to scratch the surface of like why the urgency. To come back around to your question. Yeah. But do your research and attend a literacy rally sometime if you have the chance.
Yeah.
Because I love to share that information in bits and pieces.
I feel like you'd find value if this is a topic that you really want to dig into more. I feel like you find a lot of value in following her. So I'll link her like Instagram handle and her Facebook handle on here so that you guys can go jump over and follow her if you want to. Second question I have is, what are some secrets or tips that you can give us moms on how we can kind of spark the interest in our kids and get our kids really interested and excited about reading books?
Yeah, I love that question and this is so fun for me to talk about, because yes, like you can read an article or you can listen to someone like me talk about why the books are important, but then to make that connection, to bring that down home, to make it practical and like really find ways to like make it happen where it's not a drudgery, because like this is not supposed to be hard.
Yeah, it's not like
it's not supposed to be work. It's not supposed to, and we're not. I'm never wanting to like mom guilt you, but when I'm telling you, spend the time reading to your children more. It's supposed to be a gift. Mem Fox, famous author, says like reading is a gift. She has a great book called Reading Magic. And she talks about, like, it's not something that we present to our children as a chore. And I think for us moms, like, we need to think about it that way, too. Like, that having, like, creating this reading culture in our homes, doing the things that we as moms can do to give our children a love of reading is not something that we need to, like, have on our to-do list. Yeah. Like, it's a gift and an opportunity and something that we just, like, share out of love once we kind of grasp the importance of that. Because it's something we do because we love our kids. Like, not because, like, we have this responsibility to make sure that, their brains are developing at a certain rate.
Yeah. And probably the way that we as what they see us relate to books and the way they see us approach the topic of reading is probably the way that they're going to end up feeling about it too. Right. So kind of starts with us.
Yeah. 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 And you don't want to like read to your kids just because like you want your child's teacher to be able to recognize that you're reading to your kids. Like, there's so much more to it than that. So some practical things, because I have a lot of moms tell me like that they're just not sure how to get started, or they don't my child doesn't like books. I hear that all the time. Like, my child doesn't like books. My child would rather be playing outside or doing something hands-on and something like that. And what I really want to for you guys to get a hold of is like, that is not like an argument for like why your children can't love reading. And it's been said that every child is a reader, some just haven't found the right book yet. And also it has a huge thing to do with the way we approach it. So it's not like, you need to come sit here on my lap now so that I can read to you so we can get this done because this is so good for you. You need this. And like, kind of force it on them. It's but like instead, we can attract them.
Yeah, I like that.
With the books. So one of the most basic and I think easiest ways to do that is when you sit down with a book, make it exciting. Like, decide that this is going to be worth your time and your child's time. And instead of just reading the words that are on the page, like, be intentional about how you can bring that story to life as you read it.
More than just monotone.
Yeah. And it's just you and your kids in your house, and your kids are going to love it. So you may feel self-conscious, but you don't need to. Remind yourself no one else is there listening. Yeah. And with practice, you'll get better at it. But use different voices for different characters. Yeah. And make your voice go up and down, and speed up and slow down. Yeah. And we should have just done a little example, but this is going to get too long.
Actually, this actually brings me, it brings back a memory for me, because when I was in school, like, when we were in Guatemala, we were, like, in a little Mennonite school down there, and our teacher would always, she like kept telling us to read with expression, like read with expression, and I never really got that But I do now.
Yeah.
Because it does change the experience.
It does. It
for the
changes
listeners.
the experience for the listener. And for you too. You'll have more fun with it. Once you get the hang of this. It makes read aloud time more fun. So I especially got asked, like, during Arlo's first year, I think, from the time that he was, like, 0 to 12 months, like, how do you get your baby? Like, people would see pictures of us and so on, like, reading to him, and he would sit there. He was really engaged. How do you get your baby to sit there and listen to your books? Well, that is the biggest thing that we can do, like, read expressively.
Yeah.
As trite as that sounds, but then there's more to it than that too. Like, you can be doing motions, and we had one book that we read every day for such a long time that was like an I love you book. I'm such a sucker for those. And it was, I love you high and low. And when he was little, like just in my lap, I would lift him up for that part. Like we would say, I love you high and low. And I'm, you can hear I'm doing that with my voice. And I was like literally lifting my baby up above my head and then like lowering him down to the floor while we were on the couch. Those kinds of things teach your little ones that reading is a fun experience. You're engaging with them.
And that makes, even if they can't fully, maybe they're too young to fully grasp everything you're saying, they still want to be there and they still want to listen because it's like an experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that makes me think of something else. There's a really great New York Times article online that we can link in the comments then as well. And that talks about the importance of reading to your baby in that first year and how it doesn't matter what you're reading to them, because it's true. Your infant is not necessarily like following along with the storyline. So you can read to that child a book that you're reading for yourself. Read an adult book out loud, but as long as it's directed to them and it's your voice and you are close by, like you're building a relationship there. So that's something that I haven't even touched on yet, but brain development, yes, but beyond that, you're fostering a bond with your child when you're reading to them. Like, even if it's something that you're reading, especially when they're young and they don't care what it is that you're reading, when they sense that the reading is directed to them, that you are reading to them, that's fostering relationship. And it's also teaching them that books and reading, that read aloud time, is associated with quality time with mom or dad. Yeah. Exactly.
Love it.
So you can make the actual reading itself exciting. Sometimes that, even your best attempt at that, is not going to get your child interested, and that is okay. So here's another really important thing, maybe the most important thing, if you don't take anything else away from this morning. Your child does not have to be sitting on your lap or sitting right beside you, looking at the book while you are reading to them for them to be able to benefit from that read aloud time. So if you have an infant or a toddler, or if you have a preschooler, if you have an 8-year-old who can't sit still while you're reading that story, that's okay. Let them move around.
That's good.
So your baby can be crawling away. That doesn't mean you have to shut the book and say, okay, we'll try again tomorrow. Like, you can continue reading as long as they're within earshot. They're going to benefit from hearing you read in all of the same ways, especially with a really small child. So an older child, obviously there is a lot more that they can glean from that reading time if they're, if they are looking at the pictures and interacting. But an older child is going to do that more automatically anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so don't stop reading just because they're not holding still. And then for your older kids, it's actually really good for them to have something to do with their hands while you're reading. So especially once your children are like older, preschool or early elementary, whenever you start reading chapter books to them, and because they enjoy hearing a story and they enjoy following along with what the characters are doing, and they don't necessarily need the pictures to keep them interested. Like, they can be drawing or like doing Legos, anything like that.
This is so good.
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm remembering just the other night the kids wanted me to read to them, so I sat with them on their bed and I was reading to them, and they were like fooling around together. And I actually said this to them. I said, if you guys don't actually sit and listen to the book, then I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
But they're probably actually still listening, even though they're interacting together. I can still. That's a really good tip. I like that.
That's
tip.
our natural tendency. We feel like if they're not, really engaging, like tuned in,
Yeah.
then we feel like they're
Still
not benefiting
focused.
from it. Yeah.
We're supposed to.
It's not worth our time. You know
Yeah.
what? That's not really, I mean, it's not unreasonable, but it's not very practical with young children. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys, your moms, you know that. That kids are high energy and they're moving around. And actually, there are studies that show that they are retaining what they're hearing and learning from you reading better a lot of the times when they are moving around and doing something with their hands.
I feel like some kids, this like applies even to them in school. Some kids actually learn better when they are doing something or moving.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the thing that you've heard, and that applies to read aloud time at home as well.
I love it.
Before I forget, I do want to mention this book, and if you're wanting to hear more about that kind of thing, like kids doing other things while we're reading, and other ways that you can, especially get a more reluctant reader or story listener, if we're talking young kids, interested in books, read this book. This is like I'm giving this as a baby gift now to my friends because this is like the parenting book that I want my friends to read. It's called The Read Aloud Family by Sarah Mackenzie. The subtitle is Making Meaningful and Lasting Connections with Your Kids. And that is what this book is about, but she's talking about doing that through books and through creating a reading culture in our families. So good. You would like it. You need to read it, and then you can talk about it some more. Another thing...
Actually,
yeah.
I just out of the blue decided this, but I think I'm going to add this to the giveaway.
Awesome.
Because this is what we're really trying to get across to all of you is not just like, here's another book, but this is how you can incorporate this into your life. So if this is really, really inspiring.
Absolutely.
You get this too. So these 2 books in the giveaway, which I will show you how to enter in a little bit.
Yes. So another thing that Sarah Mackenzie talks about, and that's another good practical tip, is just keeping books accessible in your homes. And some of us like do this as a no-brainer, and a lot of us, have bookshelves, and that is where the books belong. And we have them lined up in a row, spines out, because that's how you store books, right? But if you want to keep your kids interested in books, you have to have them handy, especially with your little ones. So it's recommended that you have like a basket of books or baskets of books in different places all over the house where they catch your child's attention. So store with the covers out so that they see this instead of just this. And that kind of thing. And also, for us as moms, having them in different places where they're handy, where they're within reach, helps us to incorporate that read aloud time throughout our day. So bedtime story reading is great. That's wonderful. That really is a treasured time, and it is a really good time of day to read stories because it often can be really good for that winding down process. But it's certainly not the only time. I actually don't read to Arlo at bedtime, true confession. We read before nap time. That's usually our main read aloud time during the day. Caleb sometimes reads to him at bedtime. But then we just kind of mix it into the rest of our day. And a lot of that has to do with him finding a book, especially if I just changed out the books that are in our basket in the living room or something like that, that catches his eye. Then he notices that something's different, and he'll bring that book to me. And then, I'm not going to say no. When Arlo asks me to read to him, I say yes. He knows that if I'm in the middle of something, that is the way that he can
get your attention.
Get my attention.
Oh, that's good.
So I actually experimented with this because I was really curious, how much of a thing that really is. And partly, too, because, I'm always rearranging things in my house. But at one point, we didn't have the basket of books in the living room anymore, out there where our comfy seating is. This is my office. My desk is on the right, and then we've got playroom space here. So we had all the books here on the bookshelf, and it lasted maybe a week because I realized that Arlo was not bringing books to us, to me and to Caleb, to be read throughout the day and in the evenings when Caleb was home. And as soon as I put that a basket of books back out in the living room, it changed like that again.
So
I couldn't believe it.
Really accessible for them.
Another one of my favorite tips, because I guess not everyone does this, is have books in the car.
I don't do that.
When Arlo was a baby, basically as soon as he was old enough to hold a book and not just drop it. Yeah. I mean, he still drops them sometimes. But I mean, you know, like when a baby can
Yeah.
actually grasp something. We started keeping books in the car, and so he's like been used to that from, I don't know, when did they do that? 9 months or
Maybe,
something?
yeah.
I don't even remember already. So we've always had a box or basket of books out in the car, and that's his entertainment when we're on the road. And like he's at the point now where we put him in the car seat and he asks for a book, and he pages through them. So I choose the ones with good pictures, and also Caleb and I joke that the car is where our books go to die, because especially when he was a baby, like the books that he had back there without supervision, because you know I'm up front driving the car, would get torn and things like that. So when a book like from our shelves is kind of like on the way out, it's been well loved, then we send it to the car, because then it doesn't matter anymore. And when it's like really like you can't even like turn the pages or like enjoy the book at all anymore, then it goes. But it was so worth it, and I don't feel bad about throwing those books away, because we got a lot of love. And
and if your books are perfect without any creases or marks, then your kids are probably not reading them. So.
Yes. That's like another thing. We like way too much that I could talk
you
about.
just keep going. Well, I actually love, because a lot of these tips are actually really helpful for me.
Good.
I remember I worked in a bookstore for several years as like, I think it was like my late teens, and I was allowed to like take books home with me and read them and bring them back. It was like a nice little perk of working in a bookstore.
That's awesome.
And so I would keep a bookmark, just one big bookmark that I would keep in all my books. And every time I finished a book, I would write the title down on the bookmark, just to kind of keep track. And like at the end of the year, there would be over 30 books on there, which for me was a lot. That's over a book, over a book a month. And I think that when I became a parent, it shifted a little bit for me, like my priorities shifted a little bit, and just the last couple years I've been trying to kind of regain that habit and that love of books, because if you don't have the passion for it and if they don't see your face in a book, then they're going to do what you do, right? So I think that plays a big part of it too.
There's a meme floating around, maybe you guys have seen it, like a cartoon sketch of a mom, they're on the subway or something, a mom sitting with a child, and then another mom sitting with her child, and the one mom has a phone in her hand, she's looking at her phone like we all do, right? And the child is like on a tablet or something, and then she's asking the other mom, who coincidentally is holding a book, and her child is also reading a book, and she's like, how do you get your kid to read? And I think that's all it says on the actual meme. It's like obvious, like
do it.
The mom is reading, so the kid is reading. You are, on your phone, so that's what your kid is thinking. Like that is the way to fill this like empty time when we're traveling somewhere. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, big thing. One more practical tip is to involve your child in the read aloud time. So, another tendency that I think, a natural tendency that a lot of us have, is to ask our children to not interrupt us while we are reading the book. And, like they should, again, we think they should sit quietly while we read the story to them. It actually, one of the ways that we can teach them that read aloud time is fun, and to get them interested in the first place, and then to keep them engaged, and also for really for them to get the most out of that time, is to engage them in the story. So take the time. Yes, it takes more time, but it's worth it. So worth it, because again, you're building those meaningful connections and relationship and bonding with your child during this time. So ask questions, especially at the end of the story, especially with an older child, like, once they're preschool, elementary, and they're able to understand the storyline, you can be having discussions about what happened, choices that the characters made, like what lesson, the lessons we can learn. I mean, we do that, I think, a little more naturally. But especially with young children, you can be doing that on each page. And one of the ways that I got my baby to sit and listen to the stories was I would constantly be asking him to count something on the page, or to like point out like a certain animal. And so we're like you know, I'm teaching him animal identification and colors and shapes and things like that. I mean, we're still working on it. He doesn't have it mastered. But those kinds of things, it doesn't have to be a book about shapes or a book about colors for you to be saying, like, do you see the red car on the page? And have him point that out.
And that's always fun for kids.
Yeah.
Especially young, like my 2-year-old, she loves when I do that.
Yeah. So that makes it fun for them. Another fun thing that will get them, like, really involved is let them turn the pages. And obviously, like, you have to tell them when to, and they'll eventually learn, you know, as they start to read, or if it's a book they're familiar with. But let them turn the pages. Let them feel like they have a job to do, makes them feel important, and that they have a role to play in this read aloud time. It's not just me, like, saying, okay, you sit here and now I am going to read to you. Let them turn the pages, ask questions, let them point things out. Another thing that we like to do with books that have really good rhyming text is I will read the line and then let out the first word. And of course, when I try to think of an example here off the spot, I'm not going to be able to, but
you mean the word that rhymes?
One of our favorite books is Busy Trucks on the Go. Yeah. And or like we have Dan the Taxi Man, which is a lot of repetitive text. And Arlo, before he was talking, would start to insert the here's Dan, beep, beep, the taxi man, and we would start to pause and let him do the beep, beep, and he would go geek, geek, and like with a G sound. It was so cute.
And that like really showed you he really is listening and getting this.
That was before he was talking. And so that made it fun for him.
Yeah.
And then another thing with that book is it's about different musical instruments, and he's got some of the toy musical instrument versions or something close to it, so he'll go and get his. Or like for a while he was really obsessed with, like, if we were reading a book about tractors, he would go and get his tractor, and he wanted to hold his tractor while we were reading that book. Like things like that you can do to involve them makes it fun for them. Yeah. There are so many things you can do with your child who doesn't like reading to turn that around. Yeah. I could go on and on. I'll stop there.
No. I mean, you don't have to. I love it. I feel like this has really inspired me to just let loose a little bit and not have it be so structured, you know, because then that's no fun for them either. And bring them into the experience. I love the idea of having books in the car. I'm gonna do that like right when I get home, because kids get bored in the car, and I feel like there's a lot of movie screens in vehicles lately, so like the easy thing would be to just like turn the screen on, but they would totally, I mean, they're strapped in, they would totally sit there and look at books. So I love that idea a lot. Yeah.
Yep. And the screen time thing, that's a whole nother topic for a whole other day. But again, there's a lot of good research out there showing, you know, that's really having the opposite effect on your child's brain than a book is.
It's discouraging them to read. Right. Yeah.
Discouraging them to read, and also like creating like bad addictions for some of the guys. I'm not a good one to explain the brain, what's happening in the brain with these kinds of things, but really toxic and damaging effects to our child's brains and to their emotional understanding. And I could probably link some things in the comments there too for further research.
I wouldn't mind that. Awesome. I hope you guys found some really good value out of this. Comment value if you did, and let us know. Also let us know where you're watching from, because I love seeing where all you guys are tuning in from. And yeah, hopefully inspires you to get the books out more and make that just like a normal part of the routine. Make it fun, because when we teach our kids, when we show them how to love reading, we show them how to love books, we are really setting them up for success in their life. We're setting them up to be learners for the rest of their life, and that's really valuable.
Yeah, right. So. That is my passion. Yeah. Everything that I do associated with Reader Generation, which is my brand, that some of that has come out of like the little bookshop that I have, but it's all because I really believe that we need to be lifelong learners, and that we need more people who are constantly learning and have the ability to think well, so that we as humans are equipped to both be able to recognize truth and beauty and goodness of all kinds in the world, and then be able to, contribute truth and beauty and goodness to the world. And, it's been said that a child who reads becomes an adult who thinks. And I think it's adults who think, who are choosing to be intentional, which I know that's what you're all about. Those are the people who are equipped to be kingdom builders. And that's what it's all about. For me personally, that is what it's all about. And so that is what I'm doing. Books for little ones at an early age so that they can be learners, so that they can grow up to be people who are building Christ's kingdom and changing the world in positive ways. Absolutely.
That was like the perfect place to end this, really. And I feel like it can be less convenient to sit down and read your kid a book versus just go watch a show. But if we could have a little bit of like a long-term vision and a long-term perspective and see how these little things, they don't seem big in the moment, you know, but how they're going to affect our kids later on in life, I think that we'll choose the inconvenient route and we'll sit down and we'll read them books. So I'm
that's
pumped.
What you're doing with food, right?
Yes.
And, it's
changing the habits.
Yeah, right. Because, like, what's easy and what's quick, what's maybe most appealing to me right now is not necessarily what I want most.
Yeah. It's not actually going to be what sets us up for success in the long term. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so let me give you a little bit more details about the books that I'm giving away. This is the one book. It's Illustrated Stories from Aesop, and it's an Usborne book. It has quite a few stories in it, and one thing I love about the stories is that they're not very long. They're kind of short little stories, so they're perfect, especially if your kid doesn't have super long attention span at the moment.
But then you're trying to get bedtime done.
Just like, then at the very end, there's always a moral to the story that it says. So that this story right here, I'll just read. It says the moral is be satisfied with what you have, and then you not only can read them a story, but you can also talk about that a little bit. And so I found this book very valuable, especially as my 5-year-old gets older. I feel like he's more into these stories. And then also, I'll be giving away this. This was kind of a last just random decision, but I feel like this is going to be super valuable to you parents. It's called The Read Aloud Family, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm planning to. So it says
I know you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
I am going to love it. Making meaningful and lasting connections with your kids through reading. So this is really good. So I'll add this to the giveaway. And
Sarah Mackenzie has a podcast as well.
Oh,
if that's something that you're into. I love to listen to podcasts while I'm driving, while I'm folding laundry, doing things like that around the house. The Read Aloud Revival with Sarah Mackenzie. Really, really good. She's got book lists and so many practical tips that you can get in 30 to 45 minute podcast episodes. Bite-sized chunks.
We might have to remember to link that too, because I bet people would be interested in that. All right, so the way that you enter to win this giveaway, I'm going to wait to choose the winner until like Saturday. That way people who watch the replay still have a chance to win the giveaway. But the way you win is I'm going to put a link for my Facebook page and for Melanie's Reader Generation page. And you just have to follow both of them and then comment done. And that is all you have to do. And it enters you to win the books. And like I said, I'll choose the winner on Saturday. So I think that's everything.
Awesome.
Right?
Sounds good.
Yay. Thank you again so much. This was fun. All right. Love you all, guys. Have a really amazing rest of your week. And I do a video every week, so I will be back next week with another video.
Thanks.